But think about it. Why is all of this necessary? It's necessary because of the open waters. It's necessary because of the totalitarian control that Plaid absolutely want. All of this, we've spent an hour, over an hour and 20 minutes in this, just linking back to Plaid's conference, even though there's many other things that could be, tied in with it, if you will. Do you know why people are so opposed to nation of sanctuary, to all of these other things, all of these globalist initiatives? Because they've seen how it's manifested in England, and they've seen how it's ruined their communities, their towns, their cities, right? We don't want to be ethnically cleansed from our own country. We have nowhere else to go. We have nowhere else to go. And you have no right to give our country and our people, and make our people suffer in this way for your own political gain. DJE Media recently posted this, for example. We don't want things like this in our communities, ladies and gentlemen. Sadly, people just across in our sister nation of England are already going through this. Manchester being a big one. There's a Muslim gang war that recently erupted in Manchester, it seems, ladies and gentlemen, as footage recently just emerged. I'll just put this up on screen. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll commentate over it. I won't play it with the volume. I'll commentate over it. In fact, I'll have it on a low volume so that it can just be in the background. But I got a feeling the audio improvement software will just drown it out anyway. This is UK, the YOOKAY aesthetic manifesting on the streets of Manchester, ladies and gentlemen. This is exactly what people don't want, and this is what will happen if Plaid get their way. So you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, there's a bunch of foreign males, all of them foreign males, hitting each other with planks of wood that are from like the little pallet things which you have deliveries on, throwing them at each other, using them as weapons. Rival groups of foreigners having their little conflict, right? Having their little sectarian disputes on our soil. On the streets of Manchester. Plus like something you'd see in fucking Karachi or something. This is what you can expect more of. This is what you can expect more of under Plaid's nation of sanctuary plans. Right? Where there is suffering, we see no border. How about you put up a border to stop the suffering of the native British people that never ever wanted to be put through this and never ever voted for this? They never voted for foreigners, foreign gangs, gang warfare on their streets. And oftentimes the victims then being their children. As we saw in the instance when one gang, it was a rival Turkish gangs, I believe it was in London, done a drive-by and nearly killed, I think it was a 9-year-old girl who was sat in a cafe with her mother. She's going to be left with permanent cognitive and physical disabilities now, difficulties even, from a bullet that struck her in the head from one of these foreign, there's no words, from these foreign disgusting gangs. We never wanted them to begin with. The government had no right to bring them here. But hey, this is the target voting bloc, ladies and gentlemen. This is the target voter bloc for a treacherous government. Very, very rarely then do they reap the consequences. Very, very rarely do they reap the consequences. But we did have a stark example of one of the politicians reaping what they sow. Having to reap what they sowed. And this is a tragic incident, ladies and gentlemen. It speaks to the mindset of people like Sean Williams, people like all of the other suicidally empathetic, overbearing mother drive on full display of all of these self-described feminists in the Welsh government, the British government, etc. Sacrificed potentially millions of young girls on the altar of multiculturalism, mind you, because their baby was these globalist initiatives, and that's all they care about taking care of. That's what their nurture instinct has been put towards. That's what they've chosen to put their nurture instinct towards in the name of feminism, in the name of boss babe, in the name of breaking the glass ceiling. Right? Ira Staltzer Social Democrat mayor from Herdecke, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, in Germany. This story is a tremendous example. I don't say tremendous as in good. I say tremendous in how well it illustrates exactly when the left's policies come back to bite them. And how this is one example of how, and you could extrapolate that very easily to see how it's affected all of us. The policies that they've implemented encapsulated perfectly in this one instance where it actually did happen to a leftist politician herself. Maya tortured for hours in her basement by her own adopted daughter, according to shocking new details leaked by police. This is from Remix News, right? Despite reports of brutal torture in misleading investigators, scrubbing a crime scene, and the near death of her adoptive mother, the adopted 17-year-old daughter will not be arrested. Now, don't notice, ladies and gentlemen, but also notice. This is the, diversity is our strength being brought to bear for this. Again, very sad. We wouldn't have wanted her to go through this, but this is an example of, in this instance, one of the politicians that are forcing this on their people, having to suffer the same consequences. Will she change? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But this information, so she was stabbed, right? The story initially broke because she was stabbed, I believe it was in her own home, right? And there was speculation to who did it. Initially, reports came in that it was a gang of men. That was all that was told. Gang of men. No description. No number, right? No proximate ages. No languages, languages being shouted or anything like that. No reports of anything like that. Just gang of men stabs Maya. Then photos came out of said adoptive daughter being arrested. Or adopted kid, it was known at the time. Adopted child, it was. It wasn't clear that it was a daughter at the time. As you can tell, she's been kept, visually anonymous, because obviously we protect criminals now. Quite clearly not of German stock. Quite clearly not of German descent. And now it's become clear that it's not just the adopted daughter that stabbed her, but tortured her for many hours in her basement. And then you have the full restorative justice coming in when she will not even be arrested, simply not charged or anything like that. So I don't know whether she's been released, because initially the adopted child was arrested, I believe it was. She was arrested by police, but apparently now it's now come out yesterday that she will not be arrested, so maybe she's been de-arrested, who knows. New information reveals now that her 17-year-old adoptive daughter repeatedly tortured Stolzer for hours, nearly killing her own adoptive mother. So this person who had the kindness to take in this person, offer them a home, offer them a mother figure, for whatever reason with what happened to her previous family, repays her by torturing her in her own basement and stabbing her in her own home, nearly killing her. On October the 7th, fitting date, at 12:05 p.m, Stolzer's daughter called emergency services saying her mother had been attacked by several men, that she was beaten and was barely conscious. I'll bring this article up on screen as well so you can read it as well, ladies and gentlemen. A witness off the street found the politician bleeding in her armchair in the living room. Later, her adoptive daughter told the police that's also how she found her mother. So evidently a complete fucking liar, if this is to be believed. Despite claims of several men torturing her mother, it turns out this was reportedly an orchestrated lie to cover up the horror that had occurred inside the house. Police have since learned that the mother was subjected to the grueling torture for hours in the basement of the house. The suspect attacked Stolzer with deodorant spray and a lighter, trying to set her hair and clothes on fire. The adopted daughter said she wanted revenge, however it remains unclear as to what she wanted revenge for. Yeah, what did you want revenge for? This lady, in all her suicidal empathy, took you in and offered you a home, offered you everything. And you repaid her by trying to set her on fucking fire? The adopted daughter also had 2 kitchen knives which he used to stab and slice the politician's body. Stalter faced critical injuries, including 13 stab wounds. One of the bloody knives was also found in the 15-year-old son's adopted... Oh, there we go. I think that was the son that was initially arrested. Yeah, in this instance now she has 2 adopted children, both of which are of similar descent, it seems. Along with the bloody clothing from the daughter, the other knife was also found in his room. Police also found that large traces of blood were scrubbed from the scene, which were later revealed by the police forensic team. Yeah, here you go. Here's the image here, ladies and gentlemen. I'll zoom in a little bit if I can. Here we go. You should be able to see that. Here is the image of the adopted son being arrested, it seems. Still think diversity is our greatest strength, ladies and gentlemen? Stalter nearly lost her life and was transported to a hospital in Bochum via rescue helicopter. Bild wrote the police sources believe the mother was sitting in her armchair for a long time, bleeding out while the 2 alleged suspects cleaned the house of crime scene evidence. Numerous German media outlets, including Spiegel, also reported that the police were called to the house not so long before the latest attack during the summer. In that case, the daughter was accused of domestic violence and threatening the mother with a knife. Seems that it's a pattern of behaviour. This is what our politicians want for the rest of our communities, it seems. That's the only thing we can really take from this. It's the only thing we can really take from this. Now, of course, they want all the case to go away. They're going to want this case to go away because they want to, again, push this narrative that diversity is our strength and that we're all the same, right? There's nothing, there's no differences. All cultures are equal. All of these things, right? We need to embrace restorative justice and all these things. There's no words. There's no words. You can't help but feel sorry for her, but at the same time, you also can't feel sorry for her. Because how are you supposed to feel sorry for somebody that would take pride, very likely a refugees welcome, person, multiculturalism, diversity, yeah, far-right racists. And then the thing that the apparent far-right racist said would likely happen, happened again, and again, and again. And now it seems as though she's fighting for her life in hospital in something that can only really say was completely preventable. Was completely preventable. But the lies will only continue, ladies and gentlemen. The lies will only continue. Such as the lies put up by the Church of England at the moment. That they're an actual church, right? Despite the fact they let a female archbishop cheer on the destruction of Canterbury Cathedral recently, with the anti-Christian graffiti, cheered it on in the name of inclusion, diversity, etc. That the Dean of Canterbury, who commissioned the internal graffiti in the cathedral, is a homosexual who quote-unquote married his male partner in a church, right? They cheer it on at every single turn. We cheer on our own destruction at every single turn. And now people are getting paid nearly £100,000 to lie about it. GB News reported, Home Office will pay expert £91,000 to help convince Britons, i.e. native Britons, that Labour is stopping the boats. As of, ladies and gentlemen, if something is actually happening, do you need to pay somebody £91,000 to convince people that it is? No, of course not. If something's actually happening, people will be able to see it with their own eyes. So they can see the colonisation, right? They can see the colonisation of their own lands. They can see how they're being ethnically cleansed from their homelands. They can see how they're being run over. They can see how they are being erased as a people and as a culture from this only land they had to call home. And they don't need people being paid £91,000 to say that or to put that view forward, because we can see it with our own fucking eyes. No, Labour need to pay somebody £91,000 to convince people because it is exactly a lie. So a communications expert is being offered up to £91,000 a year by the Home Office to help the department prove that Labour is tackling the small boat crisis. A job advertisement for the quote-unquote Deputy Director of Migration Communications says that the applicant should have a resilient mindset and personal authority. Prime Minister Keir Starmer is attempting to show voters that he has a plan to reduce the number of migrants illegally crossing the channel in small boats. A failure to do so failure to lower numbers could prove fatal for our Prime Minister, has repeatedly promised to do so. See, we know that they're not above lying. Digital ID was never in their manifesto. All of the things that they've done was never in their manifesto. Right? So nobody is above lying. In fact, that's all they have. That's all they have, because the thing is, because people want to, because they're good-natured people at heart, they still want to give the politicians the benefit of the doubt. I do. But why should we give Plaid? Why should we give Labour? Why should we give any of these leftist politicians the benefit of the doubt on these things, that they're actually going to solve the concerns of the native people, when they've had what? They've been at the reins now in many capacities for nearly 30 years. If you go back to Tony Blair, if you go back to devolution, right, the problems were building all the way through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s as well. But again, you can go back all the way to the end of World War II if you wanted to. But every single politician that's come through saying they're going to curb immigration, they're going to stop immigration, they're going to do all of these things, they've never done it. Why should we give you the benefit of the doubt anymore? Why should we think that you're going to allow us to solve these problems politically? Because we know who you're subservient to. We know you're working on behalf of the globalist organizations, the UN, World Economic Forum, etc., right? We know you're doing that, and we know that they want to get rid of any kind of democracy. They want a one-party state all across the fucking world. Why should we give you the benefit of the doubt when we know where your bread is buttered? This is why you have to spend £91,000 of taxpayer fucking money. £91,000 taxpayer fucking money to lie, barefaced lie to the British people. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Think about it. On Wednesday, which we can only assume based on when this article was written on the 10th. So you can assume that means it was the 8th. On the 8th of October, more than 1,000 migrants arrived on 15 small boats in a 24-hour period. Total number of arrivals since the start of the year, mind you. It was not since the start of Keir Starmer's government, which started back in, July last year. Total number of arrivals since the start of the year to 35,476 alone in illegal boat crossings. Number is up 33% from the same period last year, and equal with the record of year 2022. Record high. More than 100 migrants were gathered on Gravelines Beach in northern France, waiting on the Thursday afternoon, awaiting collection ahead of making the perilous journey. Think about it. You're putting people in danger. You're putting children in danger. Whenever somebody dies in the channel, it is a direct fault of not only of the human traffickers and child traffickers. Many says, if you listen to people like Tom Homan, who are dealing with these things at the southern border in the US, the horrific stories of children that have been repeatedly raped by these cartels and stuff like that. You're enabling this with your open border policies. When Run Up Your Worth says he doesn't see fucking borders. If you enjoyed that clip, then make sure to go on over to the Voice of the Valleys X page at VOT_Valleys on X. We're also on Instagram at Voice of the Valleys. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Godspeed.